Good afternoon, and thanks to each and every one of you for being here with us today for our virtual 2020 Women of Achievement celebration. My name is Bob Bogle, President and CEO of the Philadelphia Tribune. The Philadelphia Tribune is once again pleased to recognize women who have made significant contributions not only to their respective organizations, but also to the communities they serve. We honor and celebrate this prestigious group of women, their accomplishments, and their unwavering commitment to success. We take great pride in acknowledging the honorees in this month's Tribune magazine. Be sure to pick up your copy, by the way. Each of you exemplifies the reward of hard work without exception. On behalf of the Philadelphia Tribune and our sponsors, Comcast, Independence Blue Cross, PICO, Temple University, Visit Philly, the Pennsylvania Convention Center, the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau, NBC 10, and Jefferson Health. We congratulate you and wish you continued success. And now, I am pleased to introduce Monique Braxton. She is a multiple Emmy Award winner, 2016 Broadcast Pioneer Hall of Fame inductee, PABJ's 2013 Journalist of the Year, and for 16 and a half years, Ms. Braxton anchored NBC 10's weekday morning and weekend evening newscasts. She reported lead stories and was a fill-in evening anchor. Her exclusive interviews and compelling coverage of breaking news have made her one of Philadelphia's most respected journalists. Please welcome Ms. Monique Braxton.
Thank you, Mr. Bogle, for that kind introduction. I am honored to join you today in celebrating the accomplishments of some of the most extraordinary African-American women in Philadelphia. The honorees today have helped raise the bar of excellence while influencing generations to come. Together, they're making an imprint on the city of brotherly love and sisterly affection. It's now my pleasure to introduce our two presenting sponsors. Rachel Ferguson, Chief Innovation and Global Diversity Officer for Visit Philadelphia, and Delilah Wilson-Scott, Senior Vice President of Community Impact for Comcast Corporation and the President of the Comcast NBC Universal Foundation. Thanks for joining us, ladies.
On behalf of Visit Philadelphia, we are proud to serve as a presenting sponsor of the Philadelphia Tribune's Women of Achievement. First and foremost, thank you, Mr. Bogle and the Philadelphia Tribune for telling the Philadelphia story through the lens of the Black experience, and Mr. Bogle for your ongoing service to the Visit Philadelphia Board of Directors. We have been proud to partner with the Tribune on a range of partnerships over the years, including Sojourner, an African-American visitor's guide to Philadelphia. I also want to thank our President and CEO, Jeff Garcino, for nominating me alongside this phenomenal group of women who together will lead this city into the future. Visit Philadelphia has a long track record of promoting Philadelphia's diverse communities and marketing the city as a diverse, inclusive, and welcoming place for multicultural and multi-generational travelers. As Chief Innovation and Global Diversity Officer, I've had the opportunity to ensure the multicultural travel experience is front and center. We are not only committed to taking that story to the next level, we have many platforms to do so, including our new podcast, Love and Grit, which was created to share Philadelphia's authentic and diverse stories with a focus on female empowerment, the resilience and determination of local businesses, and to share love, laughter, and hope. And I hope to welcome my fellow honorees on the podcast to share your stories throughout the year. Because we believe in growth through diversity, we feel this is not the time for us to simply sit back and mind our own business, but to step up and mind our Black and brown businesses. Visit Philadelphia is committed to using all of our communications assets, from our website to social media to public relations and paid media, to promote the region's Black-owned restaurants, retailers, and more, driving people to support the talents, pocketbooks, and economic recovery of Black entrepreneurs, many of whom are Black women, and contribute to their growth. When Black businesses shine, the warmth of their light is felt by the visitors and the glow is shared with the city. I want to congratulate all of the nominees this year. Your talent shines, and your success shines like a reflective mirror, ensuring more women who look like us will rise to leadership roles in our respective organizations, regardless of the physical, mental, or verbal barriers that people try to put in our way. You know, that classmate who assumed you must have received a scholarship to be in the same class, or that friend who said you were pretty for a black girl, or even that coworker who called you sassy. Let this recognition serve as an affirmation that what you truly are is worthy. Let this recognition serve as a reminder of the beauty, confidence, courage, and pure magic that Black women have to lead. Just because we're magic doesn't mean we're not for real. So congratulations to everyone, and thank you.
Good afternoon. While we can't be together in person this year, in these times, we are all seeking places of inspiration. For over 100 years, the Philadelphia Tribune has inspired us in serving a critical role in keeping our community informed. Over the years, many iconic women have been featured in its pages, and today we continue that tradition in celebrating our honorees, this year's Outstanding Women of Achievement. I want to start by thanking the one and only legendary Mr. Bob Bogle. We appreciate your commitment to making sure the African American experience is represented here in Philadelphia and that our stories are being told and celebrated from our perspective. Your leadership has allowed the Philadelphia Tribune to thrive as a commanding voice in our community. Today, only 7% of mainstream newsrooms employees are Black, a percentage that unfortunately is declining. There are over 100 African American newspapers across the country, and now more than ever, it's important that we come together to make sure organizations like the Tribune are supported, to employ Black journalists, to bring different perspectives and experiences, and to tell the stories of our communities. We also take this matter to heart here and have pledged to ensure that at least half of our NBC News division is represented by people of color, both in front of and behind the camera. We are an exceptional company with all of our honorees today, women whose journeys inspire and exemplify the type of successes which we all aspire to achieve. I'm encouraged by their resilience and look forward to all of us learning more about each honoree and continuing to support them going forward. Women of achievement are role models in their respective fields, and they are in a position to inspire the next generation as well as to build more inclusive workplaces. I'm fortunate to know two of today's honorees, women such as Raquel Jordan, a senior specialist for our Comcast HR technology team, and Akita Neely, a project manager within Comcast Business. Together, they lead our Black employee network here at Comcast headquarters. I'm so proud to call them my colleagues, and I have the opportunity to get to work with them directly as the executive sponsor for Ben. They have hosted safe spaces and discussions to help our employees through the many challenges that all of us are facing this year. They've also advised on the release of Black Voices, Black Stories, our Xfinity destination with documentaries, movies, and series curated into collections to help educate and spark conversations about race and equality. They also previewed our recently released Xfinity ad campaign featuring Brianna Noble, who protested on her horse in the crowded streets of Oakland, California this year in the name of Black Lives Matter. Comcast is so proud to have them as employees and partners. Congratulations once again to Raquel and Akita for being Women of Achievement, and congratulations to all of today's honorees. We thank you for being shining examples for generations to come.
Without those sponsors, this program would not be possible. Now, what we've been waiting for, Tribune Magazine's 2020 Women of Achievement honorees. Not only are these women educated, ambitious, and experienced, but they're also willing to do the tough job, to be different, to be bold, and to take chances. Their talent and moxie have not gone unnoticed by the companies they represent or by the next generation of women following in their footsteps. And here are the honorees. Nikita Mullins, Manager of Medicare Enrollment for AmeriHealth Caritas. Raquel Jordan, Senior Specialist of Human Resources Digital Technology for Comcast. Akita Neely, Project Manager for Comcast Business Enterprise Solutions, also from Comcast. Jocelyn Hanton, Assistant Director for Crofall Healthcare for the Hospital of the University of Pennsylvania. Melita Neely, Director of Consumer and Small Group Product Portfolios for Independence Blue Cross. Lisa E. Griffin, Senior Vice President of Enterprise Operations for Jefferson Health. Fumi Williamson, Chief Customer Officer for PICO. Shami Jones, Vice President and General Counsel for the Pennsylvania Convention Center. Angela Val, Chief Administration Officer for the Philadelphia Convention and Visitors Bureau. Dr. Nicole R. Stokes, Associate Provost for Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion at St. Joseph's University. Dr. Erica H. James, Dean of the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. And Rachel Ferguson, Chief Innovation and Global Diversity Officer for Visit Philly. Congratulations, everyone. Our keynote speaker, also a woman who has achieved, a woman who represents the epitome of success. She's the 14th president of her alma mater, Lincoln University. Dr. Brenda Allen holds a master's in experimental psychology and terminal degree in developmental psychology from Howard University in Washington, D.C. In her last position, she served as the provost and vice chancellor for academic affairs at Winston-Salem State University in North Carolina. Additionally, Dr. Allen has held a tenure-track teaching position and later was the assistant to the president and director of institutional diversity at Smith College in Massachusetts. She also served as an associate provost and director of institutional diversity at Brown University in Rhode Island, and 3 years at Yale University, where she held several positions, including postdoctoral associate in the Department of Psychology and lecturer in the Departments of Psychology and African American Studies. Welcome now, Dr. Brenda Allen.
Good afternoon. It is truly an honor to offer a few words today as we celebrate the achievements of some very amazing women who are making profound impacts on our communities and society in general. Congratulations to you all. I want to thank Mr. Bogle and the Philadelphia Tribune for affording me this opportunity. Mr. Bogle is a great friend of Lincoln University, and we are extremely grateful for the Tribune's coverage of important things happening on our campus. We value our relationship with the newspaper and look forward to continued opportunities to promote and celebrate our collective interests. The inspiration for my talk today emanates from a slogan on a t-shirt that miraculously appeared on my Facebook page. I say it was miraculous because it appeared on the very day that I was facing a big decision, a decision to either stand on principle or walk away in comfort. The t-shirt had my name, followed by the phrase, and I quote, "They whispered to her, 'You cannot withstand the storm.' And she whispered back, 'I am the storm,'" unquote. The slogan first brought to mind Rosa Parks. Ms. Parks didn't leave her home that day in December 1955, intent on starting a movement. But her refusal to give up her seat to a white man on a Montgomery, Alabama bus inspired leaders of the local Black community to organize the Montgomery bus boycott. Ms. Parks' actions became a storm that eventually led the U.S. Supreme Court to rule that bus segregation was unconstitutional. I then thought about other Black women whose decisions to stand on principle sparked movements that changed the course of this society. Women like Ida B. Wells, who started an anti-lynching movement in 1892 after 3 African-American men were lynched by a white mob for defending the property against white vandals. And Fannie Lou Hamer, who was extorted, threatened, harassed, shot at, and assaulted by racists while trying to register for and exercise her right to vote. And yes, Elisa Graza, Patrice Colliers, and Opal Tomenti, who posted the hashtag Black Lives Matters in response to the acquittal of George Zimmerman, who murdered Trayvon Martin for simply walking down the street, sparking a contemporary cry for the racial injustice that so eludes these United States of America. And so this t-shirt appearing on my newsfeed on the very day that I was struggling with a life-changing decision, conjured up these women and countless others who took action to fight for justice and principles, even at the expense of their own careers, and yes, sometimes the threat of their own lives. Now, don't get me wrong, I would never liken myself or my situation to these magnificent historical icons. But it was the courage and perseverance that hit my spirit that day, reminding me of the importance for standing for what one believes. So pondering that decision that day with these brave and courageous women guiding my psyche, I was pushed to think back on my own career, and in particular, the struggles faced by women of color across professions, the struggles that often require us to choose between the calm and the storm, choices that sometimes arrest our career development. I realized on that day that my entire career has been about choosing the storm. You see, although my road from graduate school to this presidency took a rather traditional path, PhD to a postdoc to an assistant professorship, through the ranks onto administration, associate provost to president, the road was a bit bumpy. It was bumpy because from day one, I was determined to challenge popular theories about Black underachievement. Theories that either defined African-American school failure as a result of inferior genetic stock, or theories that espouse deficits in the culture as the locus of the Black children's school struggles. Rather than work from the popular assumptions of broken children, I chose to forge a path steeped in the idea of broken schools, schools that were ill-equipped to properly educate children from diverse cultural backgrounds. This cultural incongruence explanation was in its infancy at the start of my career. That I chose to reject traditional paradigms in favor of this alternative view meant that my ability to secure a tenure-track job, to obtain grant funding, and to publish papers, all accomplishments needed for success, would be greatly challenged. But defining and preserving the validity and integrity of African-American culture, especially as a foundation for improving the school performance of Black children, was a storm I felt worth entering. And yes, it was a storm. For example, it took 4 years to actually publish the first paper based upon my research findings, which showed that African-American children's memory was superior when they practiced stimuli to the beat of a rhythmic tune versus when they practiced it under quiet conditions. For 4 years, reviewers praised my work for its experimental sophistication, but questioned my ability to draw conclusions about superior performance by Black children, since my study didn't employ a white control group. Surely any performance of Black children had to be validated against a white yardstick. The storm continued as I sought to publish the next paper. The manuscript was rejected 3 times, although it incorporated that prized white control group. The study found that Black children's memory is superior to white children's memory when stimuli are practiced to the beat of a rhythmic tune, while the opposite is true when stimuli are practiced in quiet situations. The reasons for the rejections range from the results are just too complicated, to questions about whether or not I had done enough previous work to warrant publication of this one investigation. The most telling comment came from the rejection letter from one editor. He wrote something to the effect that he must agree with one of the reviewers that it was not clear whether the experimenter, me, had somehow done something in the 2 learning contexts to bias the outcome. He wondered, that is, if I had somehow made one or the other context more pleasant for one or the other group of children. Would all work have received such criticism? Is this harsh way of speaking typical of the review process? I don't know, but I strongly suspected that the objections lied with what I had found and not how I had found it. Not only did my results show that Black and white children can have comparable performance if certain cultural factors are taken into consideration, but they also showed in certain conditions, namely the music context, that little Black children can outperform little white children on an academic task. A search through the literature at that time revealed that such a finding had never been published. Interestingly, I submitted the paper to an international journal where issues of race and culture are seen as less personal than it seemed in our society. The review process for the International Journal took only 6 weeks as compared to 4 to 6 months in the U.S. journals. And to my surprise, the only revision requested by the international reviewers were to change the words black and white to Afro and Euro Americans. That is the same exact paper which received the criticisms mentioned above was published in less than 6 months. I ran into this storm head on a few years later when I applied for grant money. During the second year of my tenure track job, I submitted a grant to an agency which provided research support for developing scholars. The grant could have greatly affected my career, and that it would have provided 5 years of reduced teaching, as well as summer research support. Receiving such a grant would have made a major difference in the rate at which my research career could have developed. My grant proposal made it through the first round of cuts. Only 11 finalists out of literally hundreds of applicants were chosen. Being a finalist meant that I would be given a 30-minute interview with the selection committee, after which the final decision would be made. Only 5 of the 11 finalists were actually to receive awards. I traveled 3 hours by train to reach my interview. I had planned to arrive early, and as it turned out, I arrived an hour and a half before my appointment. While waiting, I was able to observe 3 of the other finalists being escorted to and from the interviewing room. Each finalist was promptly ushered in on the half hour and promptly ushered out 30 minutes later. When my time rolled around, I was ushered in, but I did not emerge from the room until close to an hour later. And that was only because the chairperson of the selection committee insisted that I be excused. What did they have to talk to me about for so long? Primarily, the interview focused on the findings I had obtained for my control group. I was extensively questioned about my thoughts on why the white children in the study had not performed well under the music context. We discussed how my choice of music created ethnic boundaries, which the white children may have not been able to cross. I said that was part of the experimental question. They said that it created a situation which was unduly biased toward the Black children. Silently, I was thinking, given the same logic, the context devoid of music then is unduly biased against the Black children, and as such, it supports my point. But very few of the reviewers wanted to discuss the performance of Black children. Most wanted to explore why white children had not performed well. I had never stated anywhere in my proposal or in my goals that my research was to understand the control group. The white children, which all the reviewers of my first paper said I needed, was just that, a control group. My research questions have and continue to focus on alleviating the educational difficulties of African American children through the use of their proactive life experiences. I sought to discern whether the cultivation of music and movement orientations within the African American community had any pedagogical significance. Implicit in this question is an orientation derived from a specific cultural experience where the music implied also has a cultural link. If the music was not linked culturally to the context, the nature of my question would have been dramatically different. Nonetheless, in my interview, I was forced to discuss my control group at the expense of discussing the heuristic value of my research for African American children. Not surprisingly, I was not awarded one of the 5 grants. I was, however, awarded a small grant to test the issues relevant to the committee's concerns. To receive the money, I had to restate my research question such that it would be in line with the concerns of the selection committee. They were mainly interested in whether the effects yielded for the white children were more particular to the type of music employed than the music and movement context per se. They wondered, would white children's performance be just as good as Black children's performance if the music was less Black? In spite of these encounters, I persisted with my line of research. Traveling my career path through a storm often delayed my progress, created barriers to funding, and even sometimes made me contemplate leaving the academy. But over the course of several years, my area of research became more and more mainstream, and indeed has given way to many more and new ideas about the role of culture in the classroom. Culturally competent teaching is now the mainstream idea, and most people accept the notion that students perform better when pedagogy is sensitive to who they are as cultural beings. More important is that this line of research has served to push the paradigm from cultural deficits to cultural strengths, and as such, recognition of the humanity of Black people, a result worth creating a storm for. And so the t-shirt appearing on my Facebook page on that day reminded me of these events, reminded me that my career has always been about the storm, reminded me that sometimes being in the storm can be uncomfortable, reminded me that persisting through the storm can often yield change, reminded me that sometimes we have to be the storm, no matter how bumpy it may be, if we want to see the change we seek. So I continue to choose the storm. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Allen, for your inspiration. The Philadelphia Tribune's mission is to provide timely and compelling news that's informative and relevant to the African American experience. 136 years ago, the Philadelphia Tribune began documenting the lives and activities of African Americans in the greater Philadelphia region. In 1884, the Tribune founder, Christopher James Perry Sr., published the first edition. It was a one-page, one-man operation titled The Weekly Tribune. Today, the Philadelphia Tribune is published 5 days a week with a readership of more than 600,000 people. Mr. Bogle and his staff encourage you to join them by purchasing a digital subscription of the award-winning Philadelphia Tribune for as little as 25 cents a week. At this time in our country's history, where people are calling for reconciliation, healing, and equality, consider signing up today. The Tribune reflects the people, events, and stories of the community. The paper continues to be a platform in the fight for equal access and opportunity. Now you may sign up online at phillytrib.com/subscribe to receive your subscription today. The Philadelphia Tribune would like to once again thank the sponsors who have made this special presentation possible. And thank you for joining us from your home. Be well, be safe, and have a fantastic day.